I was the only woman in the room. We were all standing around and I was presenting this thing. And the most senior man in the room said in front of a bunch of other men, "Stop telling me how it feels, just tell me how it is." And I knew exactly what they were saying. They wanted to get to the crux of what the problem was. But actually it was because I was presenting with passion, which is what I do. But I don't think he would have said that to any other man if he had presented passionately in the room. My name's Taz. I'm a woman. I'm brown. I grew up in Birmingham. I was raised by a single mum on free school meals. I've spent the last few years navigating corporate exec life. And what I've learned over the years is there is a set of corporate rules nobody is saying out loud. And that's why I created this podcast. This space is for us to unpack those rules and to help you figure out how you want to navigate the system and engage with it. I would love for you to follow on Office Real Talk on Instagram or TikTok and subscribe on Spotify, Apple, wherever you get your podcasts so we can get more of us listening and winning in the corporate world. Hello and welcome to Office Real Talk with Taz. This is episode 12. Last week, we talked about ethnicity in the corporate world. This week, we're on episode 2 of the Lived Experience series. And I want to talk about gender and what it means to be a woman in the corporate world. Because, oh my God, there's so much to say and there's so much to talk about. So yeah, I can't wait to talk to you about my lived experiences, what I've navigated, what I've seen, what I've observed, especially not just as a woman who works in the corporate world, as a woman who leads women in the corporate world, as a woman who has worked for women in the corporate world, as a woman who has seen how people talk about women in the corporate world. I hope you feel seen. I hope you feel heard. I hope that there are some shared experiences here that we can all talk about. So let's get into it. What I've observed in my own personal experience in corporate is women are often given feedback on their personality. Men are not. So we're all given feedback on our work, but women are given feedback on their personality. Men are not. Women are told we can be too emotional. We're told take the emotion out of things. We're being told we're too direct. We're told we're too quiet. We're told we're not outspoken enough. We're constantly told we're too much of one thing and not enough of another. And when I think about my own experiences of men that I've worked with, or even men that I've led and women that I've led, those conversations are different about what people say about each of those groups of people to me about them. They don't say that about the men I've led. They talk about their work. But the women I've led, they've got lots to say about how they show up, their personalities and how they behave. It's like that is reserved for women only. That's not to say men aren't picked up on their behaviours, but it has to be quite extreme for a man to have done something. And even then it can be overlooked. With women, it's more the subtle nuances that are constantly picked up in terms of their emotion and their behaviours that people give feedback on. And when I was preparing for this episode, I was thinking about, has there been one defining moment in my career where that has been true, or has there been many? And there's been so many things that I think people have said to me over time about my personality. I've got some feedback about my work. I remember in the early days, it was trying to be more strategic. Then it was like, try and learn more about commercials. Then it was like, try and learn more about technology. And all of those things are amazing. And I've done that. But the feedback has been, you're too direct. I am direct. But also so are a lot of men I work with. I've been told in a meeting, and I remember this vividly, I was the only woman in the room. We were all standing around and I was presenting this thing. And the most senior man in the room said in front of a bunch of other men, "Stop telling me how it feels, just tell me how it is." And I knew exactly what they were saying. They wanted to get to the crux of what the problem was. But actually it was because I was presenting with passion, which is what I do. But I don't think he would have said that to any other man if he had presented passionately in the room. We get more feedback than ever about our personalities. This is not a single incident. This is a climate. This is a cultural thing. This is the system. This is how the system deals with women. And because we have more things going on in our lives, we have more things to raise, we have more nuances, whether that's all the way from pregnancy, menopause, to being a mum, mat leave, to how do I get flexibility at work, to how do you cater for my conditions through menopause, all of those things that women go through. When we raise those, they are emotive topics. They do affect us at work. And actually, the fact that this isn't one thing and it's many things, and how we're treated through all of those things and how we behave on a day-to-day basis shows that this is basically structural, and it's a climate of the corporate world. And I see it so many times. I'm not a mum, but I see it so many times with women who return to work from maternity. That expectation on women just to hit the ground running all the time when you are going through life-changing events, be that having a child or menopause, is quite interesting compared to men don't have an equivalent of that. That need to almost just get back to it, to slot right back in, to hit the ground running, to accelerate their way forward. Some do and some don't. You fundamentally come back having been through a life-changing event. I don't want to say you're a different person. Some people are, some people aren't. I don't know. But you have been through something life-changing. And the expectation is you're just expected to slot in. And when you don't, there's an issue. And I've constantly tried to be the counter to that. I hired a woman at 6 months pregnant because she was the best candidate for the job. She performed the best in the interviews. No issue. I've got a PA who has 2 young children. She doesn't work late at night. We don't work evenings. She doesn't work weekends. And she works part-time in the sense that she doesn't do a full 37-hour week. She does reduced hours. And we agreed that. I don't know many PAs who do that because most people don't expect that from their PAs. They expect them to be always on. But actually, we can change the narrative of what we see for women and supporting them in the workplace when they're going through these life-changing events or trying to fit in through their lives. So there's been like 3 incidents that aren't about my emotions, but just that have happened to me as a woman that I don't think would have happened to a man. Actually, I know would have happened to a man. And they've all happened at different stages in my career, right? So I'm going to tell you about them. And they might be alarming, but this is the lived experiences series, so I want to be honest with you. So early on in my career, I must have been maybe like 28, and I went to this meeting at a private members club, and it was in the middle of the day, you know, it was like a 2:00 meeting, and it was with a bunch of senior industry experts. The industry I was working in at the time was very male dominated. So I sat in this room and it was just full of men who I am more senior than now, by the way. And the meeting started and everybody kind of started like chatting, and someone asked me if I was taking the notes. And I was sitting next to a managing director from another organisation, and he didn't know what to do. He was sitting next to me, and I just said, no, actually, I'm here representing X organisation. And the guy's face just dropped. But he had the nerve to ask me in a room full of 30 other men. I was the only woman around that table, and he thought I was there to take the notes. That has happened to me. The second thing that happened to me is, and some people might know this, I used to be a judge for the Women in Credit Awards, and it's something that I was really passionate about, and I was one of the founding members of it. I remember once there was a table that I wanted to buy for the organisation I was working in, so I was in a meeting, and again, I wasn't the only woman in my team then, but I was the only woman in the room that day because the other woman in my team was on holiday. And we were in our, kind of monthly leadership meeting, and it was like into any other business, and I just said, oh, by the way, we've got a table at the Women in Credit Awards. I'd love you guys to nominate some people. It'd be really good to recognise, some of our amazing women, and then I can take them to the awards and whatever. And the man across the table from me said, why do we have one of those? Do we have a Men in Credit Awards? And all the other men around the table didn't say anything. And I paused and I waited and I looked around and I'm like, is anyone going to say anything? I was like, nope, okay, I've got this. So I just looked at him and I said to him, it's actually because of men like you that we need a Women in Credit Awards. Now, the reason there is a Women in Credit Awards, I'm not going to get into and explain, but it's because they are massively underrepresented in that industry. But the fact that a man said that to me in a room, the fact that there were no other women in the room, and the fact that no other man said to him, what are you saying? And called him out on his behaviour is shocking. That was only 6-7 years ago. It wasn't 10 years ago, 20 years ago, 6-7 years ago. And then my favourite is it's the worst, but it's my favourite. It might even be more my favourite than the guy who called me a token and diversity hire was, I was setting up a new team and I had a bunch of new people move to me and stuff like that. And we were chatting away, getting to know each other and stuff. And this guy says to me, he said, oh, you're really different to what I expected. And I was like, well, what did you expect? He was like, well, I just love how you work and what you do and blah, blah. And I said, okay. He said, I didn't know that you would be like this. And I said, what did you think I'd be like? And he said, I don't know if I should tell you this. And I was like, no, go on. We're talking, you can tell me. And the rumour was, when I started in the organisation, because I was hired by a man, and because I was younger than all of my peers, that I was sleeping with the guy who hired me. And that's why I'd been hired in. Because there's no other way that I could be in the position I was in. It's not because I was good. It's not because I bring a lot to the table. Because I was young and I was where I was, the thought was that I had slept my way there. And I just said, oh my God, I didn't know people were saying that about me. So yeah, that was not that long ago either. So those kind of things still happen to women when we progress, when we get on, when we are in rooms that we feel like we don't belong in and in systems that people don't obviously see us in. They start to question what we're doing there, what we're about, how we got there. And I think that that is only reserved for women. And I haven't seen that with men. I just haven't. And if anybody else has, that's still shit. But I just haven't in my lived experience. As a leader, I'm also the kind of person that defends my team a lot. So if you make a mistake, we'll talk about it privately. But outward to the world, I'll say, yeah, that's my bad. I am a big sister. I do have that tendency and I will go to battle for my team. And I have been told that I'm too emotional when I defend my team. But I've literally sat in rooms where men have gone, that's what I'm saying about my team. I'm not changing it. And no one bats an eyelid. But when I do it, it's too emotional. It's almost seen as like a maternal thing that you're not meant to do at work. And it's often looked at that caring for people and showing up for them is a bias that needs to be corrected. When did we start believing that? Okay. So as part of the lived experiences bit, I'm always going to try and bring the data, right? So here we go. 88% of top performing women get feedback on their personality. Only 12% of men do. 88% of women get feedback on their personality. So it's not just change what you do, it's change who you are. Mad. 1 in 5 women in the UK has left a job because of maternity discrimination. 49% of jobs at entry level are taken by women. By the time you get to senior director levels, only 35% are women. So people drop out of the workforce when they go through life-changing things, but actually you see less and less women as you go to the top of the organisations. And I love how many more women I'm seeing in CEO seats, how many more women I'm seeing running financial institutions, running bigger tech companies. I love that Claude is run by women, but there's still not enough of us, right? And what's really interesting then, the lies in the system are basically bring your whole self to work, but then get penalised for bringing your emotions and feelings to work. Number 1. Number 2, there's 2 acceptable versions of you. Soft enough to be likeable and hard enough to be taken seriously. And it's up to you to find that middle point, and then you must stay still and not rock either side too much. The women in the system who then pick one or the other of those lanes, normally the one where it's being hard enough, are then the women who are giving feedback to other women behind them. The feedback that I have had in my career that I am too direct, have shown too much emotion about my team, has only ever come from my female bosses. And I don't just mean the direct boss I work for, like their boss and stuff like that as well. I definitely have that hard side of me, right? I'm assertive, I get shit done, but I also care about my people. And those 2 things can exist. But I hear constantly about the women who get to the top by behaving like you can't be that kind of woman, that you have to be one or the other. And there's so many women who can sometimes show up like men. And I don't buy that narrative because I am hard and I am soft. But women need to make it okay for other women to behave like that. And women need to make it okay to not give women feedback on their personalities. And women need to make it okay to say to women, you don't have to push yourself to be one or the other. The truth is, and the reframe is, that the system doesn't always know how to deal with a complex woman. It knows soft and it knows hard. And if you're in the middle, it doesn't know what to do with you, so it calls you a problem. The rumour that I told you about is the clearest example. If you cannot explain a woman's success, you have to take down her credibility. And you have to find another explanation to back it up. Even when I got my latest promotion, people explained it by it being given to me because I was a token hire. When you cannot find a reason that makes sense to you for a woman's success, you will find another reason to put behind it. So here's the permission we can give ourselves. You don't need to choose between soft and hard. You can choose to be who you are and decide which bits of you, which complex bits of you show up and where. Because the more of us that show up authentically in roles in leadership, the more that the system needs to recognize that there is a different type of woman out there who is complex and can exist and doesn't need to change to make everybody else feel more comfortable. And you can do that with care, with professionalism, and by using fact to really push the narrative further. If there is a narrative about you, a rumor about you, about your diversity, about sleeping your way to the top, about anything, any rumors about you, name them if you can, report them if you can, but know what it is. It's not about you. It's an attempt to make your competence and your success smaller for other people's comfort, because they are not comfortable when they see women thrive in some scenarios where they feel it should be them. Women get to where they are because they are good, full stop. And women navigate so many complexities in and out of work to get here, full stop. You have to give yourself permission to believe that. You don't have to buy into the narrative. You don't have to change who you are. And you can definitely speak up for yourself when you need to. And stop looking to the women in the system who don't pull you up. Find women who will pull you up. Make them allies. Find your support system. Find your community. Because that's what it takes. Just like when they say to raise a kid, it takes a village. To get through work, it also takes a village and a community. And if you don't have that or you can't find that, I hope you find it here with me at Office Real Talk. I hope you've enjoyed today's episode of Lived Experiences. There was a lot that we covered in there. I hope you feel seen. I hope you feel heard. And I hope this shows you that regardless of where you get to in your career, it takes a lot. Thank you as ever for listening and for your support always.